Welcome to Scarred But Smarter podcast, hosted by Jeff Stiles, presented by Cadis, Council for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services, sharing relatable stories of addiction recovery along with our hearts, our voices, and an abundant amount of love with all of those affected by the disease of addiction. We thank you for allowing us to be a part of your journey. And now, here is your host, Jeff Stiles.
Hey folks, welcome again to the podcast here that we have dubbed Scarred But Smarter. And we being, minus myself, Jeff Stiles with a Y, we kicked out the genetically inferior I spelling styles many years ago at the family reunion, so it's with a Y. And Mary Catherine Gentry, and she represents Cadis, who is the sponsor of this fine podcast and going to be getting finer and finer by the week every time we do it. And Mary Catherine, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you.
And get you a little closer to the mic up there.
Got it.
And for those, before we even get started, I introduce my guest. Cadis is, fill in the blanks, please, ma'am.
Cadis is an alcohol and drug abuse treatment center celebrating 6 decades of changing lives through addiction recovery. We are celebrating Cadis's 60th anniversary this year, and we're so excited. What started out in 1964 to be a treatment center for alcohol abuse has over the years truly evolved into so much more, with residential programs for adolescents, outpatient treatment for adults, plus many post-treatment options that truly help clients gain their footing in their early days of recovery. The one thing that never changed are the principles for which we stand, and those are the 12 steps.
Counsel on alcohol and drug addiction or abuse services. And somebody who is familiar with those services, I don't think you actually went through the Cadis program, though, and we'll get more into that in just a little bit, is my friend. Should I call you Kat? Because that's what I know you as.
Yeah. I have several names, but Catherine is my name. Most people will go by, but somehow in recovery, Kat is the name, and now it's just familiar to me and everyone else. So Kat's good.
I would have gotten out on a thin limb and said it probably stood for Catherine, but I could be wrong. I just wasn't sure.
Well, you seem to be careful with your Y's, so I'm careful with my spellings and all of that. So we'll just go with Kat.
All right. Well, very glad to have you. We appreciate you coming in today. Yeah. And so you guys will know as we roll onto these into the future, I will have guests in here that I've never met before, that I do not know, that are not personal friends or in the program with me or go to the rooms, as we say, with me. We'll be having some experts coming in from out of the state, out of the region, out of the country, out of the world. I have no idea, from another planet. But there'll be lots of times where I'll be plowing new ground with people in here. But Kat, like our last guest, Stephen, is a friend of mine, and she is somebody I have admired for quite some time. You've been in the program for over 2 years. How long has it been?
3 years consistent sobriety, and before that I was in and out of the rooms for several years. So it's four or 5 years.
And again, I will never shy away from telling my own story, little bits and pieces when I think it's appropriate. And I'll just say this for the record. I might as well get on the record with this. I quit drinking and became clean and sober in 2006. And I made it 12 years without any trouble whatsoever. What a lie that is. What an incredible lie that is. It was a lot of trouble, and it was very hard, but I did it. And then I relapsed. And during my relapse is about the time you entered. And I remember seeing you in there and hearing you share, and you were still fresh and you were new. And I was still dealing from my relapse, which was horrific. Don't go down that road, folks. If you can possibly avoid it, you can avoid it. It doesn't have to be you. But in the time that I've really become accustomed to you being there, I love your shares. I love when you tell parts and bits of your story. I've never heard the whole thing. But you have been an inspiration to me because you were, I'm just going to go and say it, when you first started sharing, you were kind of a wreck. And you know what? I think it's important for people to know this. Everybody who comes in there is going to be, at some way, shape, or form, they're going to be a wreck. As they say, you don't come in on a winning streak.
No.
But you now seem so much more comfortable in your skin. The fact that you're sitting here.
It still comes in waves. You'll still see me in the rooms being raw and real about things in my life. And I get real emotional about it. We see that often in our particular shared home group at St. Paul's, but it's something that I value above everything in that room is wherever I am bringing, if I can't be real there, then there's not a real chance that I'm going to be able to do it out with other people that are not like-minded and heading in the right direction. So you see a lot of raw, embarrassing things in there probably, but it's always allowed others, I think, to share openly, and then it just keeps me sharing openly, and that's important.
I don't think it could be stated strongly enough. It is seeing other people's flaws and failures that make you feel much better about yourself. Maybe that says something about human nature. But it really, hey, they're having a hard time, therefore it's okay for me to have a hard time.
That's right.
You know, again, and I'll say it for the record, it wasn't easy, but it gets easier. It's never going to be easy for somebody who's an addict. It's something you live with for your life. It's a terminal sentence. You'll take it to the grave, but it does get easier. But you are a very, very good example of somebody who has really come a long way, in my opinion. Now, give me a little bit on your story. And again, in the future, we'll have experts in here. We'll have people, representing different organizations. But in this podcast, we want to just talk to people who have real stories, real life, your neighbors, your friends, people you didn't know were in the program. And maybe you've been thinking about it yourself. And now, hey, guess what? She can do it. He can do it. I can go down that road too, at least see if it fits for me. Tell me a little bit about your story.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I'm going to try to keep it brief.
Sure.
A struggle of mine. I am 44, mom of 2 boys, 8 and 11-year-old, and did everything, raised in a devoted, I'd say religious environment, and was woefully prepared for my life in relationships, and never was exposed to a lot of alcohol, drugs. I was very sheltered. Drank very cautiously, carefully, but there was, as you hear many times in the rooms, this sense of awkwardness, didn't fit. I look back and now know I didn't really want to fit with the people I was around. But have had a successful career in employee benefits with 2 firms in town, and was doing all the right things. But with relationships and kids and a career, and really a slow abuse of alcohol, I'd say. I look back and it became my crutch. My earliest memories of adapting in odd and unusual, whether it was in college or at my first conference with work, wanting to fit in and whatever, I did not handle alcohol well.
So both a social lubricant and I need to do this because everybody, like people who actually start smoking so they can go out to the smoking area to actually make deals with people, which is where things go down, you know?
Yeah, I've done that too. You want to be a part of it. So, and there was always a bit of a part of me that felt, whether it was my roles and my jobs or whatever, I didn't mind being in a leader role, but I loved relating and building. And there was a sense of, I wanted to participate in everything, but it certainly made me feel more comfortable and funny and all of the things. And I just wasn't prepared for it to take over. So after a lot of hard things in life about 5 years ago, I absolutely recognized that it was no longer a lighthearted relationship with alcohol. I could go out and drink with some people and keep it careful, but I had to think about it more than people around me had to think about it. I had to think about it not drinking in the morning or getting over a hangover. And a lot of it was my environment. Can't blame any one thing. But I'd say for me, going through not being with my children 100% of the time, COVID, there was, we had these perfect storms of things, right? Just things that hit us that we can be mad about, angry about, we can accept, and we all know the lingo now being in the rooms. But I look back at how much I tried to keep it together with my job that was intense, being a mom of 2 boys in an intense private school in town. And I say that just any mom, any school, any dad even, but I was trying to take it all on and doing it with, as a dear friend of mine calls it, a soul hole that my family would have said I can only fill with their version of God. They didn't say it in that way.
Yeah, we've heard about the God-shaped hole in everybody's life, all our lives.
And it meant something to me because I thought I was just running and I was exhausted with myself. So I crashed.
Mathematics is not my strong point. Ask anybody who knows me, but I did some quick ciphering, and I was going to ask you if your coming to grips with your issue and your struggle if it actually had something to do with the lockdown and COVID. And you've kind of already mentioned that.
Yeah. So I recognized it was in 2019 that I was really struggling. So very much did the thing we all do by, okay, I'm not going to drink on these days, or I'm not going to do this when I'm with the kids. But I was also dealing with depression, anxiety, my fears, the source of all the bad stuff, right? And so COVID, I had gone to treatment. I think you and I may have gone to the same place. I didn't know that. Cornerstone.
Yes.
And
we discussed that last week, actually. We talked about that. My first go-around was down in Baton Rouge at a place called the Watershed. And then when I relapsed, I went up to Cornerstone outside of Knoxville. And very, very good facility. And we both noted that it's interesting. If you work in the airline industry or in the trains, Amtrak or any other, commercial train service in this country, that's where they're going to send you. They kind of have a specialty there.
They do.
So it was interesting seeing that sort of circle of life and that culture. But yeah, it was very effective.
Yeah. So I think 18 realized, something's happening. Moved out of my home and dealing with changes in my life. So I think it was 19, and I firm up those dates, but after just kind of, I really tell you where I was, is I recognized I couldn't easily stop drinking, or it was an obsessive thought. I was either coming off of a bender or going into one. And, and it's hard to even say this out loud. I think it's just feeling that continual loop you're in of, oh my gosh, what did I do? What do I need to say? And then you isolate, hide. So that became, I hid. I stayed in, and the lack of connection just blew me up. So I went to Cornerstone. It changed my life. It was the person that I brought to that place was, they would say, a level 3 out of 4 suicide risk.
Oh my God! Really?
And I remember looking up on their board and seeing these red dots on everybody else.
Red never means anything
no,
good.
No,
Red means
and there
run,
were 3.
son. Yeah.
And it was a small square. And I looked at it and thought, oh my gosh, what does that mean? And I was the only one on that board in their detox that had it. So I didn't realize how bad I was. I just knew how bad I felt. And I wouldn't say you hear about near-death experiences or your bottom. I don't know that it was my bottom. I knew that my boys weren't enough. No, nothing was enough. I knew I was desperate for help.
You've laid out so much that I want to go back and unpack if possible, and we'll get to as much of it as we can and get to a lot more. But I do want to take this moment just to point out the fact that now we got the host and the guest here in this show sponsored by Cadis, neither one of which actually attended Cadis or utilized their services when we were getting sober. I just want to point out for the record, again, since I'm going on the record on this particular podcast, it seems, the reason for me, it was not because of any lack of faith in the local organization that I knew did such good work. Trust me, the first time I walked into an AA meeting, I knew 3/4 of the people in there, and they were all nodding. It's about time. We knew you were coming. But I mean, at that time, my anonymity was very important to me. I was afraid that this was going to work against me in my career, in my life, and I felt like I needed to get out of town. So I just want to say that for our wonderful sponsors here and the folks that we're doing this for and with, it wasn't because of an avoidance of thinking that the hometown folks can't do it as good. I just wanted to keep it a secret. By the time I got out of my first, stint in rehab, hopefully, my first, and had one more and will never have any more, but I didn't have that issue anymore. I knew that as I stated, the last time, I needed to fess up to the people that I had been promoting my abusive lifestyle to, and saying, look at me, I'm a rock star and get away with this. And I realized that anonymity meant nothing to me at that point, that I had to go back and fess up to them. And I've done so. Was there a reason that you went out of town? Same thing? Social circle?
Actually, it wasn't. I'm familiar with Cadis. I see Cadis in a different light now. We'll come back to that. I do think there is a public versus private, sector as far as services and insurance and networks, and a lot of complications in the healthcare. And I was covered by a group health plan, and I had actually brought a close a family member to Cornerstone a couple years before, so there was some familiarity. with that place. I had actually driven there. And so I sort of wanted to go there. Maybe it was out of town. I know statistics sort of dictate that if you're within a certain radius away from your home. But it was in a weekend of, I think, the 3 days before I checked in. It was up and down, wanted to not be alive anymore, wanted to go to a hospital or someplace, desperate. And on that Sunday, I knew I could make a couple calls with local people. One person from Knoxville that was a friend, and then a well-known physician in town helped me. I needed to get somewhere quick. And, you normally don't get checked in on a Sunday, but so mine was more of, it was familiar to me. Cadis was actually one of my first clients in my big girl job in Chattanooga. And I just... for whatever reason, I don't know what it was. It was just the thing that I did right there. It was the familiar thing, and probably a lot, if I look back, was because it was out of town. I couldn't come back really easily. I want to point out the fact that we have a young woman here, a mother, successful career woman, raised in a sheltered environment with a good family. And here she sits with me talking about her addiction problems and the recovery from them. And I want to use that as kind of a jumping off point to get back over to Mary Catherine for a second and get her to, please, if you would, for those out there listening, again, we know that we're talking to people who deal with these things, who are related and love people who deal with these things, these issues, and some people who are wondering, do I have a problem? So for somebody who is pretty much in the same sort of overall bracket category as Kat, and they're thinking, but that's not me. I'm not a Skid Row drunk. I don't have blackouts. I haven't crashed a car yet. Just, you're eligible yet. You're eligible too. How do people get in touch with the good folks at Cadis if they think this is something I need to start exploring for me or a loved one?
If you are someone that is battling the disease of addiction, or someone that is struggling, I encourage you to go to cadis.org and dive deep into the programs that they offer. There are many. You may decide that you need to detox. You may want to go into our residential 28-day program. You may want to do the medically assisted treatment. You may choose to do our outpatient program, the IOP program, if you're a single mom or dad, or you have a full-time job, or you have commitments that simply will not allow you to go into a treatment scenario. That's an option for you. And you can always call Cadis at 423-756-7644 for an assessment. And please know this. Addiction is not who you are. It's just what you're up against. It does not define you. And there are people out there that care and that will offer help. I encourage you to reach out to Cadis. Are you looking to bring your commercial project to life? Look no further, because the expert team of Robert Roberts General Contractors specializes in turning your vision into a reality. From concept to completion, Robert Roberts General Contractors handles every detail of your commercial project with precision and care, ensuring that your project is delivered on time and within budget. Robert Roberts General Contractor is a proud supporter of substance abuse recovery at Cadis. Let's dream big and take steps towards creating a community where everyone feels valued, supported, and empowered to reach their full potential. Support those on the path to recovery by donating to Cadis today.
Okay, here at this particular podcast, Scarred But Smarter, the host here, that would be me, moi, Jeff Stiles with a Y. I'm going to be talking over the next, we hope several years, to people from various walks of life. My guest today, Kat, a friend of mine, and we attend the same meeting. You already gave it a plug. I'll give it another plug. The noon meeting down at St. Paul's. If you've ever had an interest, say, I want to see what that's all about. You don't have to be an alcoholic or drug addict to come in. You can actually just come in and monitor the class. But Kat, I just sort of identified her before we went to that quick little break, and thanks to all of our sponsors. A successful career woman, a mother, a wife. I kind of get the impression, I don't know this, that you probably live at the upper middle class level in our town, and you probably mingled with very important people, and you had different circles that intersected. You had what many would assume to be sort of a golden life, a very strong, nice childhood coming up with a good family, religious upbringing, but still you found yourself struggling. So to the people out there who might be relating to you right now, what can you say about let go of the shame? If you think you have a problem, you might have a problem. When did it finally hit you? There had to be a light bulb moment. You said it was slow, but there had to be a point where you said, I've got to do something.
Yeah. The point that I had to do something was when I realized it was life or death. There were probably 2-3 years prior to that when I was asking myself the questions that many of us ask, like, ooh, do I have a problem? Well, I'm not as bad as that person. Or
terrible way to
think. They did that, I didn't do that. And then, so there are people, myself included, that you want to push off that thought. But if the thought is entering, it's entering for a reason. I wish I would have listened to my gut long before I actually took action. So I kind of had a slippery slope to my bottom. It was a big deal. It's a big deal for anybody. The bravery it takes to say out loud the things that you can hide under the blonde hair and the nice car and the career and the 2 boys and the appearance of
the dream scenario.
Yeah. When you get there, maybe this is what people call a midlife crisis, but when you get there and you still feel this anger, just things don't feel good, and you're continually trying to feel good. So any nice, beautiful trip I went on, it just all hazed. And I have a hard time going back with my beautiful pictures of my boys and not feeling that sense of haze over everything. But it made that harder. But I made some big changes. I started making some changes in 2017, leaving one job that was great, but moved into another job and another role. And I started practicing some more open honesty with a few people and started recognizing, but oh no, I kept that hidden pretty well. My family, because I didn't drink like everybody else. I didn't drink every day, all day. But I knew where I was going when I was alone and when I knew how I felt inside. So my breaking point was I knew I couldn't hide it anymore. And I had a lovely employer that believes. I look back and the key people that helped me, they were in the rooms and were in recovery. And I didn't really know it at that point. So looking back, I feel that I was helped along the way into recovery. But I think people that saw my potential, which is very important that I see it in other people and people continue to see it in me, helped guide me to the Cornerstone and to help into St. Paul's.
Let me ask, do you think there's a significant difference in the way your substance and abusive substances of your choice and your decision to fight back against them and to try to change your life, do you think there's significant differences between you as a woman and me as a man? Do you think there's a truly different approach to recovery or a need for a different approach based on gender?
I think gender, if we ignore all the labels and all the things, I know how I feel when I step into the room at St. Paul's and several other meetings that I've gone to. I think the needs generally of females and males are different. You see me ride a lot in St. Paul's. I love to observe people. I also am raising 2 creatures that are foreign to me. They're boys. I don't know how, but what I hear about a male's path and struggle, or the outflow of their fears, come out in a lot of anger and a lot of explode. It is different for women in most cases. I struggled as a Southern woman raised between here and South Louisiana, being a people pleaser, a performer. My focus, I'm supposed to be this mom and selfless, but I also got to be a career woman. And so those roles play a huge the expectation of that I put on myself, that I felt like society, you go, hey, wait a minute, this is impossible. Y'all have put me up to a task that I cannot do. And it felt, so I do think the challenges, and as I see them now in St. Paul's, the challenges, as most times I see about 80 to 20 men to women, they are different.
I am going to assume that you related completely to America Ferrera's monologue in Barbie. Just from the things you're saying.
Probably.
All sweeping generalizations should be disregarded, including this one, that all should be disregarded. But I mean, one of the things I heard early on in recovery, and I have found it through my own observation to be mostly true, is that men's breaking point, their bottom, seems to arrive with problems with their job. That when it starts messing with their job, they start taking it seriously. With women, it tends to be more family. I don't know if you fall into that generalization or not.
Yeah. I had, before I got sober, I could see myself slipping in my work, my ability to commit, stay on task. Then I would toggle between that and being with my kids and feeling less than as a mother. My son said something to me. He was 5 or 6. He looked at me in my eyes. I'm going to not cry. And he said, Mom, you look weird.
I had an experience or two like that.
And, when I was in Cornerstone and we practiced meditation or just kind of clearing the decks of our freaking effed up brains to think clearly, they would have us visualize something, and I would visualize him. I saw the picture in my head and in my home, but just the source of strength that comes from, it's not that I don't want to let them down. I want to be real with them about it, because they are humans. They are going to face struggles just as I have. And I think my kids weren't enough, but that definitely was motivation. Being Father Richard Rohr is someone I listen to a lot. He has a kind of 4 different talks in one audio book or whatever it's called Transformation. And he mentions, speaking to male and female transformations or life cycle, whatever you want to call life cycles, or how they can feel, an ability for me as a mother to feel a love in something outside of myself certainly impacted my path. But hell, I don't even know what the question was now. I've rambled. You know me well enough, and I'm going to try to hide rambling. But no, I definitely, I see how I came back into my job, but I was pretty real about it. When my quality is good or bad, I can follow my sword pretty quickly and say, okay, it is what it is. Let us go forward. But I'll tell you, after being in treatment, I felt like being disconnected from my phone, from people, accepting I don't know what people are thinking right now about me. They're talking, and I have to be okay with this. I had to start for the first time being okay in my own skin with my broken self. And that was a huge shift when I came back into my world.
The kids, you really spurred a memory for me. And I just say, as kids, we all know they say the darndest things, and we all know that they're going to be, brutally honest with you at certain ages, and they can be very strong medicine. And my kids have given me a huge pass when I try to get very real with them. I have tried to make amends in the past. I said, I was not the guy that missed dance recitals or missed softball games. I made all those things, but for a long, long time I made them, and I was drinking. Oh, yeah. And I did keep it on the down low. And if anybody thought I was even drinking, I still seemed to be fairly coherent. That's just the way it worked. And but I did have one time when my youngest biological son, Lucas, he reached without asking permission for my grapefruit juice that was sitting in the cup holder on our way to a scout meeting. And yeah, it was spiked. And he just went and took a swallow. He was choking on something and took a big swallow, and he looked at it, spit it out, and just made, Dad, what's wrong with this grapefruit juice? I said, it must have gone bad. And I laugh now, but at the time I felt God, I was driving.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have gone. I wasn't, driving under the influence. I was driving under the influence if I would not have registered, but it doesn't make any difference. What a violation. And I remember that to this day. And when you said that, I saw your lip quivering. You did almost get, to the breaking point. And I look back on that and I goes, how remarkably irresponsible is that? And I think about how many times did I negatively affect their lives, even though they might not be consciously aware of it. And it is strong motivation.
It is motivation. It's motivation. And I think after 6 months of sobriety, I felt I felt a sense of joy, contentment, some things come into my life. I think over the last year of sobriety, going deep, because you know how things are, Jeff. It's like you're getting sober, you're in recovery, but I don't talk and think about drinking and using pills. I don't think about that all the time. I'm dealing with my life, my relationships, my kids, my career. I've threw a grenade in my whole life and redoing everything. And so I've had to lean in heavy with my kids, dealing with, things in our home life and transitions in our life, and have hard conversations. And I still realized even a year ago that I came at those conversations with a bit of an excuse. Well, yeah, but, and I didn't say that all the time with them. And I think it's 3 months ago that I sat with my now 11-year-old, fresh 11-year-old. He just had a birthday, and had the real conversation of, I know I wasn't there for you, but because I was being the mom that shows up at the school all the time, because it's just, you're there all the time.
Sure.
And you're doing the costumes, you're doing the things, and I'm there all the time. But I know now how I'm present and I'm here looking, and it's so different now.
You were there all the time, and so therefore, and again, I had, unlike you, it was never mystical to me. There was no, angel and devil on my shoulder. I had people going to me, dude, you drink too much.
Oh, I had some of those too.
You drink too much. But I also had my work people who all seemed shocked when I told them I had gone to rehab. They knew I was gone for a few weeks on family business. That was the story, right? When I came back and I told them what I'd done, which I said I felt like I needed to do, they were going, you didn't seem to have that much of a problem. Yeah. Here was one of the oddities, and something I think needs to be addressed early on in this podcast, in the life of this podcast, is one of the stranger things about your first steps in recovery is how many people from your life and your world don't want you to go down that road. They want to pull you back to the old you who was more fun, the old you who they could drink with, and now they think that because you're getting right in your world with your higher power, that you're somehow looking down on them. And there's anger. There's anger out there for people who don't want you to get straight.
Yep.
You ran into that as well. And
I'm
thinking,
gosh.
And I've got you in your stereotype here as living in this world.
Well, it's a mirror, just like it's a mirror to them on what they're doing. And I was pretty good not to come back in and tell anybody what to do, but I sat my butt in those seats and I went back into all my other circles and I did it differently. So I did, oh, you weren't bad. I never say you drink that much. I was like, yeah, because I did it by myself when you weren't around, because I had enough self-awareness. I could jack up my job and my relationships. But my parents, my sister was one of two people that drove me to recovery. And there was very much their support, but they're like, well, you're not that bad. It's because of this. And I have had to learn the discernment to know that they love me. It's not just because they don't want to drink with me. They're trying to excuse the things. But I also know they didn't know, and they still don't know how bad it got. They just don't. You know how hard it is to relate to an alcoholic when you have never dealt with that? Hearing my mother relate to things, it's of course they're going to say, oh, you're not that bad. It's okay. You don't need to. And I've had people say I've become obsessed with it or have made it a bigger thing in my life. But I now know in recovery how far I had gone in my own self and my own ego and in my own soul hole that I had filled up with all the other things. And I knew how far I had to get out of that. So they don't.
If you're dreaming of spring gardening weather, visit the Barn Nursery for the best selection of plants to bring on the spring blooms. The Barn Nursery is the South's premier garden center and a proud supporter of alcohol and drug abuse recovery at Cadis. Discover the elegance and charm of generations past at Brody Jewelers. With a legacy of craftsmanship and quality, Brody Jewelers offers a curated collection of exquisite pieces that tell stories of love and legacy. From vintage heirlooms to modern masterpieces, each piece carries a rich history waiting to be cherished by you. Visit Brody Jewelers today and experience the magic of this family-owned, historical, fine jewelry store where every piece is a work of art and every customer is family. Brody Jewelers is a proud supporter of Cadis.
2 different points with my guest, Kat. My name's Jeff Stiles here at Scarred But Smarter, a Cadis-sponsored podcast that we've just recently launched. I'm very glad to have Kat as my guest in here. And 2 things I want to touch on, the differences between men and women, how they approach it. One of the best books that I ever read was written by a woman for women who were going through addiction and recovery, and it was called Alcohol, A Love Story. And it literally presented itself almost like a romance novel, but the lover was alcohol. And I related to that completely. And it was my ex-wife who actually was reading it when she was dealing with me. And she suggested I read it, and it really gave me an insight. And it's an important relationship. You have a very intense relationship with this entity that is not doing right by you. It's stabbing you in the back. It's cheating on you. It's stealing from you. But it's intense, and it's very real.
And you don't want to get rid of it because you don't have
It's familiar.
It's familiar. You don't have the skills, the tools, the words, all of it to fill in the gap when you remove it. The last day I drank, I went to a liquor store 3 times that day and made the decision not to go in each time. But it's like this obsessive thought, and it takes a while to turn that down. And for me, I had to turn a lot else up. I had to read it like you're talking about. I had to read the things. You make a good point. Sometimes we, men and women, we need to embrace the masculine and the feminine. Our dear friend David from St. Paul's really spoke highly of divine love, true love, whatever you call your higher power. I choose to call that God, or I say Guadalupe in the universe, because God, I've learned, is greater than my understanding, and is the true source. My spiritual walk now is what keeps me growing in not just recovery, but in my life. So sobriety, recovery is not about, for me, the removing of the alcohol, the drugs, the negative. It is the slow sloughing off, or whatever that word is, of all the bad habits, the bad, the qualities, the character defects, or all the things, schemas, we all call them in these recovery places. But it's really relearning how to live and to move toward being unoffendable, as some people like to say. And so I think
It'd be a great place to be one day.
Yeah, I'm striving for it always.
Well, I'll jump in there just for a second. And you mentioned this is something we'll have to get into down the road with some great intensity and dig really deep. The God talk that goes on inside, most 12-step meetings. Yep. And not all. There are things out there called rational recovery. And you know what? That's a stumbling block for a lot of people. How often do we hear people who are new in the program saying, and old timers, the biggest problem for me was the powerlessness and the whole God talk. And I want people to know, her perception of her higher power, mine of mine, probably very different. And there are people, as many people are in the room, there's a different take on what that higher power is. Nobody's going to force some sort of old, Santa Claus guy in the sky, God down your throat if you go into 12-step. And if they do, you're in the wrong meeting.
Yeah.
Keep on looking.
Yeah.
And I tried rational recovery. It didn't work for me. I had to have some faith involved there. And I can tell you right now that God does for me every single day things I cannot do for myself. I can't do them. The other thing that popped into my mind was I wanted to come back to the women in your circle. I said, did you have some that wanted to lure you back into your old way of life? Well, I knew that was going to be a yes. I think most people go with that, but it's the new people in your life and some of those that were already there. The new people, though, make such a big difference. That support that you find out there, for anybody out there who's wondering, who's thinking maybe this is something I should look into, it is so wonderful to find people. I mean, from wildly diverse walks of life. You don't have anything else in common with that person, but you have this, and this is pivotal and central.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about the recovery walk. However you do it, because like you mentioned, there's lots of programs, programs that are embedded into churches or not, and we call them all things. The vibe I get, the inclusion I feel, the ability to relate, in that we focus on the things that are in common versus the things. So we're not sitting here talking about politics and all the things inside these rooms. And the God whole discussion, when we come into the rooms and you're looking for reasons to be ticked off or not come back, you're going to find it. And if that terminology puts you off, then it will. At some point, you'll be open-minded, not about what your understanding was, but if you truly look today at what is guiding you and be open-minded. So I would say to anybody considering that is to take, to be curious-minded and to look for reasons to find the similarities versus the differences, and kind of let the understanding of it all evolve, because certainly mine has.
Something you mentioned a minute ago, I want to come back to it, and I want to make sure, again, everybody understands me fully and clearly on this. I'm going to be totally honest with you on all of these things we talk about, and this topic in general and specifics. And when I say it gets easier, but it never gets easy, trust me, that is true. And I know people out there who have 40 years of sobriety. A woman that we both know, a mutual friend of ours, literally celebrated 45 years of sobriety the other day. And after the meeting, I asked her, I said, do you still have cravings? She goes, every day. But I don't want that to be a negative thing. I want you to understand that should be a positive, shining beacon of light to you, that they can get 45 years and still have the longings. But it does get easier. And you talked about pulling into the liquor store parking lot 3 times on your last day of drinking and talking yourself out of it. When was the last time you did that? When was the last time you actually pulled into a liquor store and went, no, I can't. Do it. No, I can't.
Yeah, that was the last time. So that would have been on January 24th or 25th of, over 3 years ago.
It gets
easier. And I'll tell you what, the biggest thing that I would say now is I got to start filling my soul hole up with goodness, the good stuff. And it wasn't just the relationships, the other men and women that I've learned and walked alongside. It's the slow changes that I made in my life of who I chose to be around. We want to stop drinking and just get sober and then go back into our lives without the other changes. We don't have to get rid of it. I went into the same environment with all the same drink. It's everywhere in every circle I'm in. I didn't have to gripe about that. I had to start changing inside, and it just evolved. And what I started to do is fill myself up with, I roller skate. Some people, I think, Stephen was here last week. He skydives.
Roller skating goes a long way toward making us so happy.
Where people are living and happy and there's true joy coming out of their eyes and face, guess what? I'm going with those folks.
People ask me why I was still riding a skateboard, a longboard at 57 years old. And the answer is because it brings me bliss.
Yes.
I get on it and I get that lateral movement. I'm addicted to this feeling, the sensation of the ground rush on me. And that's, you know what? That's a great replacement for a drink.
I see your face right now talking. You know what you felt, Jeff?
Yes.
You felt alive.
Yes.
And I think as people, we have grown to be okay with being covered up by life and media and social media and what people think. And we forget that we're real people that are alive, that can connect and relate with all sorts. And if I'm awake and aware and walking through my day just today, not worrying about tomorrow, because I'm scared as crap about a lot of things in my life going on.
It's a scary time.
Oh my God. I'm walking into a new career in consulting, and then, with just a lot of things going on. And but I take those and I use the same principles that helped me to recover from obsession with alcohol, I am now dealing with all my obsessive thinking or my goals. And that's the other thing. Skating is fun. It makes my body feel alive. And our body does keep the score. We all have read those books. This is not mental health. This isn't just substance abuse. This isn't just suicidal thoughts and a wreck of a life that's happening in our community, in our homes, and in ourselves. But we have, when we fill ourselves up with the things that matter and get back on our little life path, because it's great, because everyone's different, and we're actually walking where we should be, interacting and being awake and aware and present, the impact we can have on others and they can in turn have on us is more fulfilling for me than all the running I did and the anger and the resentment and the bullshit I had before. I'm
using that as a beautiful place to kind of, pull the reins back and put the brakes on this podcast. We're almost out of time, but, Kat's observation, and I'm going to make it an invitation to everybody out there, speaking for nobody but me, but I'm going to invite you in. I mean, come back to the land of the living. Mm-hmm. You're talking about, running, hiding, sneaking, faking. That gets old, man. It's exhausting. It gets exhausting. The amount of energy you put into drinking, into acquiring your substance of choice, into taking it, into recovering from it, the cycle, the expense. You can let go of all that. Now I want to go to Mary Catherine again as we wrap up today and say the CADIS, the reason we're doing this is because they feel that there's a need to get this message out there in a new way, in a new format to people who are out there listening. And if you are hiding and ducking and shucking and jiving and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, which is one of the phrases we use, there are options available to you. There are paths you can go down that are much better. You stay on the wrong road long enough, you end up in the wrong place, right? Well, the right place for you or your loved one could be CADIS. And I'm looking here at a list of things provided by CADIS. And Mary Catherine Gentry, if you would, just kind of give us a quick commercial for the good folks over there, if you would.
CADIS is the Chattanooga area's only nonprofit alcohol and drug treatment center with a full continuum of care, which means that once a client finishes inpatient or outpatient treatment at CADIS, that there are many post-treatment programs that one can transition into that truly help to get that footing that is so needed and wanted during the early days of recovery. Some of the programs that CADIS offers include the medical detox unit, adult residential treatment, inpatient, the medically assisted treatment, the IOP program, adult intensive outpatient treatment, the Schultz Center, which is CADIS's adolescent residential inpatient treatment. There are many outreach initiatives that go on every day at CADIS, along with transitional living, our Family Way program, which is for single moms and dads with children. And we have halfway houses, along with sober living, permanent housing apartments, and the post-treatment programs can go up to 2 years, and that's a great thing. CADIS also does school and community prevention programs, along with DUI education courses for the DUI school for the DUI offenders.
Let me be Captain Obvious and point out that DUI school is not where you go to learn how to avoid DUIs while drinking and driving.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for listening to Scarred But Smarter. Continue to and share with everybody you know, whether they're suffering, dealing with it, or not. It should just be entertaining to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Scarred But Smarter is presented by CADIS, Council for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services, Chattanooga's only nonprofit addiction recovery center with a full continuum of care, offering the highest quality of treatment to those struggling with substance abuse disorder, regardless of their ability to pay. Go to cadis.org to learn more about our recovery and aftercare programs or to make a donation, because every gift is much needed and greatly appreciated. Thank you for letting us be a part of your journey. Find us online at cadis.org.
Ferguson Bath Kitchen and Lighting Gallery, your destination for luxury home products that elevate every room in your house. Whether you're renovating your dream bathroom, designing a gourmet kitchen, or illuminating your living space with style, Ferguson has everything you need to turn your vision into reality. Transform your home into a sanctuary of sophistication with Ferguson Bath Kitchen and Lighting Gallery, where luxury meets inspiration. Ferguson proudly supports CADIS.
If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol or drug abuse, reach out.